Thank you. I want to start off with introducing all the elected officials in the room. There's quite a few here. I know a couple of my college board members are here, and anyone else in the back, or stand if you're an elected official. We have several mayors here, city councilors, port commissioners. Thank you all for coming to support. Cemetery board, all kinds of different. Thanks for your service. Really appreciate it. At the end, I'm hoping that you all stay around for a little bit. I have some announcements to make at the end when Senator Merkley and Congresswoman Hoyle are done, and they'll exit and we'll chat for a little bit, and then I'll let you go off to your day. So I'm going to start off with introducing our guests today. We're really lucky to have them down here in Curry County. I'm going to start off with Congresswoman Hoyle. Congresswoman Val Hoyle was born on Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield, California. Her father was a firefighter and a labor leader, and her mom organized and to support the 1972 Equal Rights Amendment. After graduating from Emmanuel College, where she became the first member of her family to receive a college degree, the Congresswoman spent 25 years working in the international bicycle industry in retail management, manufacturing, distribution, and international trade. Representative Hoyle was elected to the Oregon House of Representatives in 2010, representing West Eugene and Junction City, and eventually served as the majority leader. She was later elected statewide to serve as Oregon's Labor Commissioner, a nonpartisan role leading Oregon's Bureau of Labor and Industries. In 2023, Representative Hoyle was sworn in to represent Oregon's 4th Congressional District in the House of Representatives. The Congresswoman serves on the House Committee for Natural Resources, including the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries, in addition to serving on House Committee for Transportation and Infrastructure. She moved to Lane County over 25 years ago with her husband, Stephen, to raise their 2 children. They are both proud union members. Now I'd like to introduce you to Senator Jeff Merkley. Jeff has been called the Boots and Roots, or Roots and Boots, Senator from Oregon because his deep roots and boots on the ground. He's traveling to meet with Oregonians in every corner of the state. He was in Umatilla over the weekend. That's quite a hike down here. Born in Southern Oregon, timber town of Myrtle Creek, Jeff spent his early years in Douglas County, where his father worked as a millwright. Jeff learned the ropes of public policy as an intern for Senator Mark Hatfield, and later worked on national security issues for the Department of Defense. But it's Jeff's experience leading housing nonprofits here in Oregon, including a chapter of Habitat for Humanity, that kick-started his public service. Jeff was elected to the House of Oregon in 1998 and became the Speaker in 2007. 2 years later, he was sworn in to the same U.S. Senate seat once held by Mark Hatfield. In the Senate, he's focused on building 4 foundations for success of working families: good health care, quality education, decent, affordable housing, and good paying jobs. This year, Jeff took over the top Democratic spot on the Senate Budget Committee, where he's fighting for working people and for tax fairness for America's families. Jeff is also the only member of the Oregon delegation serving on the powerful Appropriations Committee, where he brings an Oregon perspective to important federal funding decisions. This includes being at the forefront of securing funding for wildlife prevention and recovery as the top Democrat serving on the Interior Appropriations Subcommittee. So please join me in welcoming Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley and Congresswoman Val Hoyle.
thank you very much, President Scott, and thank you for hosting us here in this incredible facility. And thank you, all of you, for showing up. Boy, it's literally standing room only. So we are delighted to be here to hear from all of you at the Town Hall. We like to start, Val and I, with recognizing an organization that has contributed to the community. This is the 17th time I've been here in the county and done this. And so a lot of different groups have been recognized over time. And today we're going to recognize the Brookings, Oregon Monarch Advocates. And so Dennis Triglia is here. So Dennis, come on up and join us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So in May of 2017, Brookings became recognized as the first Monarch City USA in the state of Oregon, and they hold an annual Monarch Festival. And I must say, monarchs are, of course, incredibly beautiful, and they appear in our lunch boxes and our clothing and all kinds of things, but they're in trouble. And they are kind of a symbol that represents the challenges we have with pollinators in general, which are important to our ecosystems and to our agriculture. And they're fascinating butterflies. Our western monarchs overwinter on the coast of California. They have 4 generations flying north, 1 generation flying south. I don't know how the hell they figure this out, but they have their little social media between them and say it's time to head back to California. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Mr. Senator, thank you for introducing the Monarch Act into the U.S. Senate in 2023. I appreciate it. And our members were delighted to receive this recognition from your office. Thank you so much. Monarch butterflies are also pollinators, although many people don't think of them as pollinators. As they go from flower to flower drinking nectar, they will pick up some pollen with them, and that helps when they go to the next flower to pollinate them. So they are important. Their numbers have declined 99.9% for the western monarch population from 1980. When I went down there in 1980 to the overwintering sites, they were hanging in blankets from trees, and now there's a few little patches of them. The extinction, the quasi-extinction level is 30,000 being counted at the end of the year, and last year I think there were 1,911, so we're way below that. So right now the monarchs are being considered for listing under the Endangered Species Act. And so what BOMA has done is we provide public outreach to a lot of the organizations, and we work with school teachers in the schools. We bring in monarch eggs and they raise them to butterflies and then tag them and release them so we can follow their migratory pathways. We create habitat by planting milkweed, which is the plant that's required for the butterflies, and nectar plants that bloom throughout the season. And we encourage the establishment of certified monarch way stations through Monarch Watch. There are currently 246 monarch way stations in the state of Oregon, and 14 are in Brookings. 2 are in Gold Beach, and 1 is in Port Orford, or 17 for Curry County. We're trying our best to have an annual Monarch Butterfly Festival like we did in 2018 and 2019. We need a lot of creative volunteers to help. We need to find a lot of new members. When COVID hit, that sort of made a big difference in us. So anyway, they need our help. If you can, look us up on Facebook under BOMA for Brookings, Oregon Monarch Advocates 97415. And the good thing about monarchs is that they appeal to people of all ages, people of all political parties. Everybody talks to each other. It's just a wonderful thing. So thanks again, Mr. Senator. Oh, sure. And this is Holly Byer. She's one of the members of the Brookings, Oregon Monarch Advocates.
A little flip book on the metamorphosis. And then Carol Pasternak, who lives up in Canada, wrote this book, Step-by-Step Guide for Kids on How to Raise Monarch Butterflies.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Val and I will put those to work. And we have, first of all, I have to say, I've never seen a pair of monarch shoes. So you all can't see these right now, but They are fabulous. That is total commitment to the cause. And we are on the verge of extinction, and we had one other almost near extinction episode, and we're very, very lucky the following year, because with those 4 generations, when things go right, they can multiply fast. But still, we surged back up to 200,000, and then we collapsed again. And we have a big challenge, and so everyone who would like to plant pollinator gardens, these are the folks who know how to do it, who are training people to do it, which is so needed, because you need to put pesticide or pesticide-free plants in your garden, and it's not always easy to know exactly how to do that. So we have a flag for you to just say, really, job well done, to use an appropriate fashion that's been flown over the U.S. Capitol. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Val and I are not going to give long introductions. We're just going to jump in. We want to hear what you have to say. The president is mixing up all of those little tickets to make sure everybody gets an equal chance. And really, what has made town halls work in Oregon, and I can't speak for the House side much, but in the Senate, really, Ron Wyden and I are the only ones who really hold town halls like this. Because of the growing animosity we have in our country, what's made it work in Oregon is to emphasize the Oregon way. So that means, in practice, if somebody's speaking you profoundly disagree with, and they infuriate you, still please be respectful and let them make their point. And the same for when you're speaking, we'll ask everyone to do the same. And that enables any thought to be shared from anywhere on the political, ideological spectrum, which is the way a town hall should be. We want to hear from everyone. Does that sound like a good deal? Yeah. All right, great. We do have one student. I think we have a student. Yes, we do. And so we're going to start with her, and then we'll go to the tickets. And this is Ava Cryer. Ava, I see you in the back. Do we have a microphone for you? She is a sophomore in college, majoring in chemistry, or sophomore in high school?
College.
College, okay. All right. Plans to go to med school, to become a dermatologist with a focus on naturopathic treatments. And that is really cool, and loves being outside and taking advantage of being in our nearby redwood forests and beaches. You live in the right part of the country. Welcome.
Good morning, Senator, and thank you for being here. My question is, with the Department of Education facing increasing political pressure and the Pell Grant facing a deficit, I'm wondering what your plans are if Pell expansion is not an option for students like myself who come from a low-income background and rely on this grant to be able to afford a higher education.
So both Val and I are the first in our family to go to college. And so we really understand both the cultural challenge, the financial challenge. And right now there's a bill before the House and Senate called the Reconciliation Bill. It has 2 stages. First is there's general instructions about how much money committees should change in what they spend or what they raise in revenue. And that bill has passed both chambers. That's called the budget resolution. The second is the actual reconciliation bill, where those same committees say, okay, we were told to cut X number of billions, how are we going to do it? That's coming up. And that's the concern right now. Because this bill does 3 things that I think are all bad news. The first is it cuts $2 trillion, or that's what the instructions are, from programs like healthcare, housing, education, good-paying jobs. It gives $2 trillion in new tax cuts compared to existing law to the very richest Americans. Families lose, billionaires win. That's 2 strikes. And then it also creates another $7 trillion in debt over the next 10 years, which will affect the next generation, the ability to fund healthcare, housing, education, the next generation. So in my mind, that's 3 strikes and you're out, and we're going to try to defeat that bill so we do not lose critical support for education like Pell Grants and TRIO programs and subsidized student loans and Title I for our K-12 and Title II for our K-12. That's where I'm coming from. Val, you want to jump in?
Thank you. And First, I want to say, I remember growing up when we'd watch the monarch migration, and the sky would be black with these butterflies, with monarchs, and we don't see that anymore, so thank you so much for what you're doing. I was a Pell Grant student, I was a TRIO student, I benefited from investments in public education for special education because I'm dyslexic. Without those things, I would not have graduated high school, never mind college, right? I wouldn't be able to be productive, and so these investments are critical. We do need to upgrade and change the way we approach our education system. We got kids graduating hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, fighting for $15 an hour, and employers who need employees that have a different type of training, right? For the 50% of jobs that need more than a high school degree and less than a college degree, community colleges are well placed to work with certifications that fit the job needs that we have. However, and I've started, whether it's apprenticeships or certifications, stackable certifications, being able to be paid while you learn is critical, especially for people who don't come from wealthy backgrounds, right? I had to work my way through college. I'm sure you do too. So fundamentally, I had been working with Republicans and Democrats on this approach, right? How do we meet the needs of the moment? But we've got colleagues that don't believe in public education, that don't believe in funding special education, that believe that our taxpayer dollars should go to private schools. This will hurt our rural communities the most. So we have Suzanne Bonamici in the House, who is on the House Education and Workforce Committee. I will continue to work towards solutions that work for everyone, and I know we have bipartisan support. And I will continue to fight for the things that made it possible for me to be in Congress, for me to be able to have a job to feed my family, right? For what we need to invest in, which is public education. So there are people that want to break that system, and we will, and I know our senators as well, will stand up and fight that every single step of the way.
Okay, thank you. So if you pull out these tickets, I'm just going to read the last three numbers on the right. Raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. Tell us your number and your name. And if no hands are raised, we just keep rolling as fast as we can. So the first three are 814 and 792 and 747. Any hands in that group? Yes, right here. Your number and your name.
747.
Thank you.
747, and my name's Jane Opiate. I don't even know how to phrase this, so I'm going to just show you his name.
Kilmore Abrego.
And I want to know what your plans are to resolve this situation.
So Kilmar Abrego Garcia was swept up, illegally sent to another country, to El Salvador, to a prison camp. Everyone should be absolutely outraged by this. We also had a green card holder from Vermont. We just signed on to a letter that was picked up, and they're working to deport. And understand what this is. This is a way to pressure the courts for the administration to break apart the separate and equal branches of government and our powers, right? To have the courts say they don't have to recognize the protections of a green card, of legal residence, to say that they can ship someone out. This is a father, he was a sheet metal worker, he is in El Salvador. The courts have said, bring him back. The administration is saying no. Fundamentally, and I was, right before I got here, in a conversation with a number of my colleagues from around the country, talking about what we can do, whether it's going down to El Salvador. We can certainly sign letters. This is fundamentally going against the basis of our Constitution and our democratic republic. The Constitution says that we have separate and equal branches of government, separate and equal. And the founders put this in place so that we did not have one branch of government or an executive becoming a king. We were trying to get away from that. So, fundamentally, we're supposed to make the laws, the judiciary interprets the laws, the executive branch enforces the laws. This administration is trying to, and thinking that, and many of my colleagues are just rolling over and saying, well, that's what they want to do, let's let them. They want to make tariffs, they want to make war, they want to deport people. They're talking about deporting American citizens. I don't care what party you're in, this is wrong. So, we're going to speak up and do everything we can because I took an oath to obey the Constitution of the United States, and this is unconstitutional. So, we write letters, it's what we do in Congress. April 5th, everyone came out in the streets. Fascism rises slowly, then it rises quickly. We are in the quickly part, but we are in the part where we can stop what's happening. And again, this should not be a partisan issue. So we're counting on you to stand with us. We are going to stand up every step of the way, and we're figuring out what we can do. And again, we're hoping the Supreme Court, when you get a 9-0 ruling from the Supreme Court, you know, that should mean something. And we are going to push this administration to follow the courts, because that, if we don't have that, we do not have our democratic republic.
Just to accentuate, the Constitution says the government cannot deprive you of life or liberty without due process. And due process is the line. You know, monarchs are great if they're butterflies. They're not so great for freedom if they're a political system. And if you lose due process, in which a government can just grab you and detain you, we have lost the freedom our founders fought for, and we have fought to maintain over the last 2.5 centuries. So it's a very big deal. The president of El Salvador was in the Oval Office yesterday, and I was asked at another town hall what's going to happen. I said, assume the president's going to come out and say, the court said we need to get him back, and the president of El Salvador is going to make sure he's flown up tomorrow. Right? No. He came out and said, can't do anything. Oh, sorry. Are you kidding me? The president of the United States doesn't have any way to influence the president of a modestly sized Central American nation to return a person wrongfully detained? And realize, in the worst prison to be found virtually in the world. So I'm glad you raised it. It is not about just this one person. It's about the freedom of everyone, everywhere. And we have to carry that fight ferociously. How many folks want to make sure we carry the fight for due process, protect the freedom of America? All right. Did we have 814 or 792?
What's our next step?
814 or 792. We'll keep going in order. Right here? You have it? Okay, what number do you have?
792.
Okay, you're on.
Hi, I am a 60-year-old first-time college student as a result of what's going on in a lot of areas, but specifically the Pell Grants and Social Security. What would you say regarding this situation for people like me?
All right, so we kind of talked about Pell Grants. We're going to fight to keep them from being decimated by this reconciliation bill. Both of us would like to see them increased. We have supported the ability for them to be used, both certificates as well as degrees, because certificates can be a big advance towards something. Getting more funding for them in this budget environment may be beyond the reach, but we can try. But let me talk about Social Security. Unbelievable that the president would start shutting down Social Security offices, start shutting down the phone lines, start shutting down the ability to respond by email. I've had folks at the last 2 town halls I had who had been hours. One said 4 hours, one said they spent all day. Anybody tried to get through to Social Security and did you have difficulty?
Yes,
You had difficulty.
yes, and after waiting for 2.5 hours, I was cut off.
2.5 hours cut off. How about in the back there?
The outgoing message stated there was a wait time exceeding 120 minutes for hold.
Yeah.
And when you finally get through all of the phone tree AI garbage, you cannot schedule an appointment. You cannot get an answer to your
All
question.
day just to try to schedule an appointment. And one person at my town hall had gone in and been told, sorry, we're not busy right now, but you didn't schedule an appointment, so you have to go home and call us. I mean, really, the government is there to serve us, not to make things harder. And think about Social Security. It is an intergenerational bond, a commitment. It has to be funded. You know, a lot of the folks on Social Security, 50% depend on it for 90 to 100% of their income. And maybe they're only getting like $1,200, $1,300 a month. I mean, you can barely pay rent. You lose one check, and you may be in foreclosure for your house or kicked out of your apartment or unable to buy your food or your medicine. It is a big deal. It has to work well. We want it improved, not decimated, and we're going to push back in every way we can. I know the trust fund still has a significant surplus, but in about a decade, that will not be there. That's why right now, we should be on the floor of the Senate and the House debating a bill that makes a trust fund solvent for the next 70 years. I held a series of workshops around the state and put forward the various ideas to increase the solvency, and basically every table came up with the same choice, which was increase the amount of income that is subject to Social Security premiums. I'm giving my side of the party a hard time. I want to give my Republicans, let's get together on the floor and debate such a bill and vote on it. And if we vote it down, then the citizens can weigh in and tell us we're bums and throw us out of office.
So I represent from the top of Lincoln County to the bottom of Curry County, all 6 counties in that area. My district has more Social Security recipients than 87% of the districts in this country. And so this is really important. In fact, we're going to be doing a town hall with Peter DeFazio, Max Richmond, who works with Social Security protection. Next week, we'll look and see if we can get it Facebook Live or streamed so that people can watch. The bottom line is that Social Security is an earned benefit. It is not a Ponzi scheme. We have Elon Musk, who was given an emerald mine by his father, right, was given the money that he has, who has $82 million in federal contracts, telling us that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme and people who receive Social Security are parasites. That is offensive. Social Security was put into place after the Depression so that people had a way to live in dignity and pay in for their entire lives. This administration has sent out an email to the people that work at the Social Security Agency to say that they should not respond in writing to congressional requests or advocates for Social Security. So I've talked to my Republican colleagues and said, as a member of Congress, my most important job is constituent outreach. So we need to help make sure that people can get Social Security. They fired a whole bunch of people who normally answer the phone. They have declared immigrants who have paid into the program dead, which means they can't get credit, they can't pay into Social Security. Understand that when you have people who are unelected, right, who have your Social Security number under the auspices of making government more efficient, we should all be screaming about that. So what we are doing is highlighting this fact that they are undermining Social Security to take away the money that you earned, that you put in, so we can give tax breaks and, contracts with no oversight to people like Elon Musk. That is not fair, that is not right, that is not partisan. So What we need from you is to contact our office, to tell your friends to contact their congressional offices. We need to have those stories, and we will continue to fight to make sure that you get the benefits you've earned. I also, the first bill I put in when I was in Congress in January of 2023, and again, this session is a bill with Bernie Sanders, Representative Jan Stachowski, and Senator Warren to increase Social Security benefits by $250 a month, to increase the solvency of Social Security for 75 years, by lifting the cap because someone that makes $167,000 pays the same amount in Social Security as Elon Musk does, as a billionaire does. That is wrong. We should lift that cap, make sure Social Security is solvent, and let everyone know this is not an entitlement. It's an earned benefit.
Did we have 814? Okay, moving on to the next three, 788, 793, and 807. 788, 793, and 807.
There's someone up here, Senator.
Oh, okay, great, great. I heard God speaking from above.
She is a woman.
Hi, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Okay, my name's C. Roberts, I have number 793, and I live in Brookings, and I would like to know your position on Title IX for women, for men in women's sports.
So here's what I believe. I believe that there is a role for government, and I worked in the sporting goods industry and with professional racers for my professional career. And the fact of the matter is, I think sporting associations should make the determination about who should play in sports, because once we have the federal government getting involved in our personal lives, where does it stop?
But we already have Title IX.
But we have Title IX, and the fact of the matter is, I believe you're talking about trans women in sports.
I'm talking about men in women's sports.
So if you're talking about trans women in women's sports, the bottom line is, my position is, the sporting associations should make that determination, because otherwise it is government overreach. And we should not say it's okay for government to overreach here, because it's not going to stop. And we have trans people who are being victimized because they're an easy target. And the fact of the matter is, it's done under the auspices of protecting women and girls and children. If my colleagues in government actually wanted to protect children in schools, they might do something about school shootings, because a child is more likely to get shot in their classroom than to be in sports with a trans girl. I'm not going to pick on people because they happen to be different, and I believe that government has a role, and it should not be involved in every single aspect of our life, because we start letting that happen, it doesn't stop.
Here in Oregon, the Oregon State Athletic Association is charged with the mission of fair and safe participation in sports. So they're a group that you may want to take your opinions to in that regard. I will say that having the federal government tell every group in the nation what they can and can't do is much worse than having a sports association. And think about sports like archery and rifle and so on and so forth. Let the sports associations figure out the boundaries. And this is what I want to add. The people with the most difficult journey in life are our trans youth. They are the least understood. They are the most bullied on social media, most bullied in schools, highest suicide rate. And I was raised under the ethic that many of you, I'm sure, were raised as well, with the kind of the ethic of the Good Samaritan. Whether you heard it in your religious setting or just culturally. And the story is told. The priest walks by and sees the person who needs help, beaten, robbed by the side of the road, keeps going. Another priest comes by, keeps going. And then the Samaritan, which is from the tribe that is not liked, from beyond, comes by and says, wow, let me help you out. Let me get you help. When we see people who have a particularly difficult journey, and our trans youth have a particularly, make an extra effort to reach out to them, show some graciousness, show some love, show some support, as we should to everyone who has a difficult journey. 807 and 788, either one? Okay, keep rolling.
You got one up there.
One up, one above two, okay.
Coupon, did you say 798?
I think it was 780.
788. Okay, you may be in the next group. The next group is 757, 778, and 808.
757?
Okay. And anyone, how about 808 or 778? All right.
Thank you both for coming to Brookings. We really, really appreciate this. My name is Kathleen Dixon. I'm from here in Brookings. And my question is this. My birth certificate has my maiden name. My expired passport has my first married name. My current ID has my current married name. If the SAVE Act passes the Senate, I'm going to have a heck of a time registering anywhere else, say I move from Oregon or whatever. I'd like to know, I know it's already passed the House, I'd like to know what the senators are doing to stop this act in its tracks.
Well, we're going to kill it. It's not going to pass. The pledge we're talking about, equal justice for all. You know who else, whose birth certificate doesn't match their name today? Vice President of the United States of America. His birth certificate does not match. So, in that act also is an emphasis on trying to decrease vote by mail and early voting. And why is that? And the reason why is what some want to do is manipulate election day because it's easy. If you don't want a group to vote on election day, you put the precinct in a new location, you put it where there's no parking, you understaff it so there are long wait lines, you put out misinformation about where it's located, and it's effective. It's a true and tried way to suppress voting, and it's been used primarily in cities, college campuses, and Native American reservations. Well, I think instead of discouraging and trying to stop, talk about an assault on the fundamental freedom, the ballot box, to have our voice heard at a critical moment, how about we instead increase the ability of people to vote by giving everybody in the country the ability to vote by mail or early voting. Stop all that manipulation. I had a bill last session that was Senate Bill number 1, and Senate Bill number 1 was for the people, and it increased the ability and fairness of voting across America. The SAVE Act is the opposite, and I guarantee you we will not let that get through the Senate.
So I voted against the SAVE Act that purported to protect our elections from, I don't know what, from people who are voting illegally. You know what undocumented immigrants aren't doing? Voting. They do not want to go near any government functions. The fact of the matter is, this will stop people from voting. Now, my Republican colleagues said, but this act says that the state can make rules about women, like I changed my maiden name, so my birth certificate is different than my passport. We can't use our real ID licenses. That's not an acceptable form of ID. But my colleague said, but your state can make it so that they address this issue. Representative Maxine Dexter, the new representative from Portland, put in an amendment saying, okay, well, how about we just put this in the bill? It got voted down. Why would you want to disenfranchise 69 million women from voting to make it harder? So Senator Wyden and I put in the Vote from Home Act last week, I don't even, what day is it? It's the weekend, last week, to replicate what we do in Oregon. We vote from home. We have a voter's pamphlet statement, so you don't have to have millions of dollars to communicate with the voters. We get to sit down and look at every single one. We have paper copies of every ballot. Everyone should want vote by mail, and if you don't want vote by mail, then I have to question what the real effort is. But fundamentally, they refused any amendments to make this easier, and I am very grateful for our senators for standing strong.
Is your number up?
778.
Okay. 778. We have 788. But we have 7782. All right.
The name is Jeremy, and I wondered if you are aware. Oh, works better when you turn it on. I wonder if you are aware that both of our local, our senator and our representative of state are pushing for doing away with the mail-in ballots. I just read this the other day. After 25 years of working fine, what's your response?
So my understanding is that they put forward a proposal, a bill to put vote by mail to the ballot for us to vote on. I believe that there will be signature gatherers from people who have bought the conspiracy theory that our elections are not secure. And so I think we'll have a chance to vote on that. Here's what I know, is Republican Secretary of State Norma Paulus and Democratic Secretary of State Phil Kiesling worked to implement vote by mail 25 years ago. And it is incredibly popular. So the fact of the matter is, that bill is not going to get through the legislature, and I do expect we will see a signature gathering effort, so it may well be a ballot measure on our ballots in 2026.
I'm thinking back to when I was first running for the Oregon House. And half of the state was voting by mail and half was voting at the voter booth. And I was going door to door and asking what people were concerned about. And often it was the potholes in the street and so forth. But then people would say, but what I really want to tell you is, I really love voting for my house. And I must say my instinct was, I kind of love the idea of all of us coming together on election day and going to the polls. And I once carried my little son in with me while I'm voting. And then people started educating me. They said, do you realize how complex the ballot initiatives are in Oregon? I can sit at the kitchen table and study that with my spouse. Do you realize that this is a chance for me to educate my children about how to vote and show them how important it is? Do you realize that I have a bad hip and I can't go and walk a block to get to ballot place? I certainly can't stand in line. I'm like, wow, okay, I've just been educated. After learning more about it and understanding how secure it was and how it created greater ability. And if you recall how it emerged in Oregon, it started with the Republican Party in Oregon, saying we want to get people signed up for absentee ballots because we know it'll turn out in more numbers. The Democratic Party said, wow, that's smart, we better do that too. And that's how it came when I first ran. Half people were voting by mail and half were voting by booth. But what we chose worked really well. If there is an initiative like this, I'm quite confident from the years of hearing from people in Oregon, I'll be surprised if it gets the signatures, but if it's on the ballot, it'll be robustly defeated, and we will save this much better system of voting that has been adopted in blue and red states, like Utah, for example. So I guess that's my thought on that. Let's not just save our vote by mail, but spread it all around the country to stop the manipulation on the phone. 749-795 and 758. Okay, right over here.
I'm Bill Gorham, number 758. I'm a marine biologist and a very strong advocate for climate action. Representative Hoyle, Senator Merkley, thank you very much for your support for clean energy. This is a really important issue for me. I hope there will be opportunities to progress while Republicans hold the majority. In what areas of clean energy policy do you think you can find common interests with the Republican colleagues?
So recognize that we have seen a vast growth in wind in North Dakota, in Iowa, in Texas, and there's a real constituency for that. Nevada, which is a purple state, tried to eliminate their ability to have basically solar energy feed back into the grid and change their rooftop solar, and robustly defeated across the state with opposition from both parties to that change. So there is a growing understanding on both sides, but let me tell you that this question really raises the issue of the problem we have with money in politics. Citizens United, court decision, created a real affliction to our democracy, to our republic. It said that if I want to help you run for office, the government can put a cap on what I give to you because it would be corrupt for me to give you a lot of money and have you feel emboldened to me or to my industry. But I can give unlimited sums to your spouse or best friend to run a parallel campaign on your behalf because somehow you won't notice where it's coming from. That is, a vast absurdity. Think about the Ohio Senate race where in the last month a small group of crypto CEOs gave $40 million in that Senate race. $40 million. I mean, yeah, I've held a fundraiser here for a Senate candidate and raised $40,000. That was incredible. Man, 40,000. That's 40 million is 1,000 times 40,000. And the funds I raised were limited under a donation directly to the candidate. So the crypto world has now created enormous political power because everyone paid attention to that. The fossil fuel world has done the same thing. And I have watched, remember it was first President Bush who ran for office on climate. The Democrat, Dukakis, ran on coal. So it was the Republican Party that was championing clean energy. It has done a flip because of the money in the system. And I have watched, Senator McCain was a champion, he passed away. Senator Lindsey Graham has been helpful in modest and quiet, gentle ways, but modestly. Senator Romney told me when he came in 6 years ago, and then he's now gone, but he stayed 6 years, he was going to be the Republican champion, and we never heard anything more about him on clean energy. And he was in a hearing in his last couple months, and I heard him say, there's nothing we can do about it. And I talked to him afterwards, I said, it's such a change from 6 years ago. What happened? He goes, well, it's just like, it's the reality. Well, the reality is that our climate is changing so fast as the temperatures warm. It is the biggest threat to humanity. We don't have another planet. In just 30 years, we've seen a big change in temperature. That issue we have with kelp right here off the coast, and the disease we have with the sun stars, those are affected by the temperature and the acidity of the water, which changes the kelp, which proceeds to affect our fisheries. The snowpack in the Cascades has dropped not 60%, almost 50% in the last 90 years. The effects, how much cold water we have in our streams for our trout and our salmon. How many people fish? Would you rather have large cold streams or small warm springs? Large cold springs, much better. And by the way, that loss of this year we had fantastic snowpack. It's so fantastic it produced a lot of flooding. But on average, it's dropping, which not affects just our streams, but also the irrigation water in late spring, early summer for our farmers, ranchers. This is so important that we act. But as long as the political system is driven by this kind of money, we just have to keep making the argument and hope that somehow we will push forward. We have seen in the last year, 80 to 90% of the new energy that went on the grid was renewable. So we are seeing a significant change. Coal is no longer competitive with gas or renewables. People kept saying, well, we just need a technological solution. Well, utility scale solar is now 2 cents per kilowatt hour. Utility scale wind is now 2 cents per kilowatt hour, cheaper than fossils. And all we have to do to save this planet is electrify everything with renewable energy. If we keep pushing towards that vision, we will pass on an Earth to the generations to come that will be a habitat that they'll thrive in forever and ever. Let's do it.
What the senator said, and this is also a matter of national security. For us to be energy independent means we have to invest in green sources of energy. I, like many of you, live in a rural community, and the electricity goes out, and so we have to be prepared, and we are, to make sure we have water, we have food, we are able to run our electrical, appliances off the grid. And we know, and we have heard, there may be cyber attacks to our electrical grid. The bottom line is we need to be producing our energy in the greenest way possible, in the cleanest way possible. And that means having hard conversations. But when I say it's a matter of national security, I mean, climate change is a matter of national security, right? If things are burning, if, we aren't able to fish, if we're not able to hunt, if we're not able to feed our citizens, never mind the world, it's going to be a problem. But one example, and this is where we did a hearing, the Democrats on the Natural Resources Committee, on NOAA and the cuts to NOAA and what that effect would be. So just one thing. So we have marine carbon dioxide removal, right? Marine carbon dioxide removal is a multi-billion-dollar industry that we stopped investing in because, I don't know, it's green, it's woke, I don't know. But China is investing hundreds of millions of dollars in that technology, and we are getting left behind because somehow green energy is woke. That is not right, and it leaves us in a deficit if China will eat our lunch because they will invest in this green energy, and we need to do what's right for our country, for our national security, for addressing the fact that climate change is happening. And even when I talk to my Republican colleagues who do not believe that carbon has any effect on climate change, I say, okay, let's not talk about that, but let's talk about the fact that we have hot, dry conditions that are causing wildfires. And what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about energy independence? What are we going to do about being able to be self-sufficient? And I can have those conversations. And what I will say is that we need to stop outsourcing our social interactions to a social media algorithm run by people who want us to dislike each other and stay outraged, instead of having real conversations where if we just talk to each other, my neighbors don't vote the way I do, but I could call them at any time if I had an issue, and we trust each other enough to have hard conversations. And we have to keep doing that, because when we have those hard conversations, we can find that we do agree on things like investing in this type of energy.
So we are down to the wire, so I'm just going to...
$7.95?
Great, you're going to get the last one.
Thank you.
$7.95 or whatever number you just said.
I don't know that I need a mic.
You're doing pretty well.
country doesn't sew clothing. Our country doesn't make the things that are being tariffed at 145% right now. It's starting now. Everything that's coming in. I'm all for American made. That would be wonderful. But you cannot expect us to go build factories and tomorrow to be able to support our families. He's killing the American small business. What are you going to do about it?
So, yes, and my background is international trade. I moved to Oregon because this is where we wanted to raise our kids, and to work for a U.S. manufacturer who, and sorry for my language, got screwed by NAFTA, which was, I think, a really, really, really bad for a lot of American manufacturers. This same company, I talked to the CEO yesterday, is now getting screwed because they offshored their assembly, and they get a lot of parts from China, and she's like, we're getting crushed again, and we may go out of business. The fact of the matter is, we should have trade policy that encourages investment in manufacturing in the United States. But you can't just flip the switch like that and think that those costs won't be passed on to us. So, wine growers, 40% of Oregon wines get sold to Canada. That business ended overnight. Yes, we all have to drink more Oregon wine. But, but this is affecting American manufacturers everywhere and American small businesses. So in the budget bill that was just passed, my Republican colleagues slid something in there that said that they don't have to weigh in on tariffs because they didn't want to touch it because they knew it was really unpopular. And so we are going to continue speaking up, and examples like yours are what we are bringing to the table to say these tariffs and the erratic nature of these tariffs are killing small businesses, and consumers are going to pay the price.
One position I shared with President Trump in his first election was his opposition to TPP, because expanding the connection with very low wage, low environmental laws countries was vastly destroying manufacturing in the United States. The remedy for that is something that's targeted in a modest way to create a transition over time so a company has an incentive to build a factory in the United States. Well, the President Trump this time put forward two theories. First, he said these are going to be permanent, but they weren't just focused on China, and they weren't like a strategy to build that confidence. And then he said, well, this is shock and awe to produce negotiations. Not a single business in the universe right now is saying, well, let me go build a factory in the United States of America. And we not only had a stock crash, but normally when the stocks go down, the investment in treasury bonds goes up. But instead, people were fleeing the bond market. Fleeing the bond market is a symptom of the fragile nature of the dollar as a reserve currency. If people, and suddenly you saw articles, the headlines were headlines I never expected to see, like, oh, the new reserve currencies are going to be Europe and China. Wow. Well, if we pay so this bill, this reconciliation bill, Congressional Budget Office costed out what it would cost over 10 years. I mentioned $7 trillion in additional debt. And over 30 years, because the Senate wants to expand the tax breaks infinitely into the future. And over the 30 years, it's a $52 trillion addition to the national debt. Fiscal responsibility thrown overboard. But if the interest rates are 1% higher, CBO, Congressional Budget Office said, 1% higher, on top of that 52 trillion, another 24 trillion in debt. That's how important reserve currency is and how this chaos is affecting us. The president is not achieving the goal of encouraging people to invest in the U.S. right now. And he's putting us in a very dangerous position of potentially losing our reserve currency status. So damage in all kinds of ways. We're out of time, so I'm going to wrap this up with just a couple points. People have been asking, and if we'd gotten to enough questions, somebody here would have said, what do you suggest we do? I'm going to try to give you a sense of that. First is, get off the couch. Well, you're all off the couch because you're here. So thank you. Second is, hold your electeds accountable in a ferocious manner. The phone calls, the letters, I had 3,000 phone calls one day 2 weeks ago, and we tally every single call. We try to answer them live, but we couldn't do that with that many coming in. But it also means showing up at town halls. It means demonstrating outside the offices of members of Congress. It means raising your voice in a fierce and ferocious fashion if you're not happy with the risk right now to preserving our We the People Republic. Third thing, find an affinity group, because if you're worried and concerned by yourself, it's depressing and ineffective. But if you join in with others, it's energizing and it really carries weight. And finally, I'm going to add a fourth item to this, which is take an occasional break for a long weekend or a week. Turn off the television, turn off the cell phone, any other news, and hit the road in Oregon. And to help you do that, I prepared this Oregon Treasures Quest book. This is the 17th year I've gone to all 36 counties, and we keep finding new and cool things. So we put in treasures in all of our counties that are public treasures. And if you go to 10 counties and you send us a selfie in front of something that's in this book, you're invited to an Oregon Treasure Quest party in November. Just a little way of saying, amidst all of our challenges, amidst all of that, keep in mind that we live in the most incredible paradise to be found on the entire planet. And so take a moment, be with your friends, your family, your visitors from out of state. Go hit some things you've never seen, and you'll feel restored and energized and ready to save our republic. God bless you all. We'll see you later.
If you guys want to hang on just a minute for a couple of announcements.
So you raise your hand.
I promise I won't keep you long. And you can blame me if your question didn't get asked because I was drawing the tickets. Sorry about that. First of all, I just want to thank the congressman and the senator for coming to the SWAT Curry campus. I want to acknowledge there's a number of high school students here, and they in the back, the trio students. Raise your hand, they're spread out. Really awesome to see high school students here to learn about how this process works and get involved and take charge of our democracy and hopefully get involved in elected position in the future. Just a couple of things that are going on here specifically at the Curry campus that I want to tell you about. First of all, we honored South Coast Lumber. One of the big employers down here is our current technical education partner of the year. They work with us to help students keep they work with us to help keep some of our programs current and relevant. We also finally are going to have a sign out on Highway 101. I'm going to be meeting with the sign people here shortly. It's been a whole long process. We didn't own the land down there to be able to put a better sign out on Highway 101, but it's coming. You should be able to see that hopefully sometime by midsummer. We also we recognize students from the Curry County, do a student convocation, and that's on June 5th at 5:30 if you're interested in coming to see all the cool things the students are doing and the scholarships that they're going to be awarded. And then lastly, we have about 30 students from Curry County that'll be graduating this year, and our graduation ceremony is on June 13th. So, and there's a lot of things. I want to acknowledge Jill in the back, the dean here in Curry. Does everyone know Jill? You can find her here pretty much every day of the week when she's not up on the Cuse campus. So thank you guys all for coming. It's great to see this many people in this building, and thanks for helping keeping democracy going.